So even more good news for Xbox fans, and this isn't just actually good news for Xbox fans. It's good news for PlayStation fans. It's good news for console gamers in general. I feel like this is like way long in coming, and this is like something that probably should have happened years ago. It's surprising, but this has been a completely surprising generation altogether. Anyway, just the way that kind of everybody's sort of treated everything in general. So, I never thought we'd see a generation where Xbox sold, under 30 million units in 5 years. And I never thought we'd see a generation where Microsoft was putting first-party Xbox games like Gears and stuff on PlayStation, or where PlayStation was putting anything on Xbox, because in my opinion, PlayStation doesn't give a crap about Xbox, and so that surprised me. And I always say never to anything anymore, because it'd be foolish to do so. But when that kind of runs its course or whatever, with how strange this generation has been, I want to get into this because I found this to be super interesting, and I'm sure a lot of you will probably agree. Hey, I'm Crap Gamer. This is Crap Gamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It helps out my channel tremendously and means a lot to me personally, as I do daily gaming content, which, I have fun doing that. I try to be fun yet informative, so if that's something you're into, then yeah, stick around, like, share, subscribe. Really, all you have to do is like the videos, though, so it helps them to be seen and the channel to be seen as well. So with that being said, one of the biggest pet peeves that I have when we have new generations, especially over the last couple generations, is so many games were like cross-platform, cross-generation, right? And one of the reasons why I believe Xbox and PlayStation haven't sold maybe as well as previously thought, or as well as they could, is because we live in a world where so many people play, like games as a service games that are still going, your Minecrafts, your PUBGs, your Call of Duties, your Maddens, stuff like that, and your Apex Legends, whatever the case may be, Fortnite. And these games are still widely supported on those old platforms. And so why would somebody who just plays like PUBG and Call of Duty and Fortnite, why would they upgrade to new hardware just to play those same games, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. But now PUBG is ending support for Xbox One as well as PS4, and it's only going to be playable on PS5, Xbox Series X and S after November as far as consoles. So I look at this as a good thing. More of these long-in-the-tooth games should be ending support on the previous platforms. PUBG Studios has announced that it will be ending support for the PS4 and Xbox One versions of PUBG, as it moves to only supporting the game on current gen consoles. As mentioned in their roadmap, they've been preparing for transition console to current generation only. A statement on the website reads, starting November 13th, PUBG console will be supported only on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. The studio calls the transition necessary as part of its efforts to provide their players with a more stable gameplay environment on console and ensure a smoother, more seamless experience in future updates. Which is interesting because, I haven't played PUBG personally in, a good number of years. I mean, this was a huge game back in the day, like when the Xbox One X came out. It was massively huge, and I had an Xbox One X since day one, but my buddy that I used to play PUBG with didn't. And so what was funny was we'd be playing, and I'd be like, "Oh, go into this house or whatever," and he'd be like, "The door hasn't spawned yet," or stuff like that, because there was such a difference in the versions of the games or whatever. So yeah, it was completely interesting the way that kind of went about and the way that kind of happened. And so I'm all for it. And this will be good for the consoles themselves. Less consoles for developers to mess with, and taking full advantage of the platforms and things like that. I think that's super important going forward, and hopefully they continue to do that where they start phasing out some of the older stuff. I'm not, hey, listen, guys, you can't stay on those old consoles forever. You know what I mean? But this is what they say. Quote, "It weighs heavily on us to deliver this news to our console players who have enjoyed PUBG on PS4 and Xbox One for so many years. We still vividly remember the epic battles, the heart-stopping moments, and the camaraderie that brought us together. We are deeply grateful for every moment you've spent with us over the past 8 years. This was not a decision made lightly. It comes after long and careful consideration in pursuit of continued growth and long-term future of PUBG console." The post goes on to explain that players on PS4 and Xbox One will have their accounts preserved and secure after November 13th, ready for those players when they log back in on a PS5 or Series X and S. And thankfully, logging back in is all you'll need to do to pick up your account with no separate transfer process required. PlayStation gamers will, however, have to download a specific PS5 native version of PUBG to play the game, since PS4 version will appear as a separate app and not be playable. Once the transition has been made to current-gen platform, players on PS5 can expect to play PUBG at 1440p at 60 frames, while PS5 Pro players will be able to play at 4K 60 frames. On Series S, both 1080p 60 frames, 1440p 30 frames will be supported, depending on the experience, and Xbox Series X players will enjoy 4K 60 frames per second experience as well. So yeah, nice to see that that's going to be able to kind of happen, and that people will be able to, you know, enjoy playing the game. And listen, I get it, you know, some people might not recognize this as like good news or whatever, but trust me when I say we're starting to see more and more of this start to happen, and the sooner it happens, the better. And you know, like I said, you might not understand why, but it's like, how can developers take advantage of the newer hardware when we kind of have these old hardware? Like the Xbox One and PS4, even though they came out in 2013, they were made with like 2010 components, you know. So think about that. You know, like people that are playing these games and people that are making these games are, you know, doing so on ancient hardware, you know. And it's kind of crazy to me to see that happening. And you know, at the end of the day, it's nice to see that, you know, Microsoft is kind of doing something about that, making sure that, or not just Microsoft, but you know, developers are starting to kind of come around a little bit, and you know, giving people a reason to get the Xbox. Like, I think console gaming, you know, it has stagnated a little bit, and I think probably one of the reasons that it's stagnated is because, you know, one, we haven't had the content, and two, so many of these games on the previous platforms and still playable and still getting updates and things like that. And you know, I'm sure that at some point it'll stop completely, but you know, there hasn't been a whole lot of reasons for people to upgrade this generation, and I'm like the first to admit that. You could have been probably perfectly fine if, you know, you're just like one of those gamers that likes to play Call of Duty and Madden and stuff like that. Although this will be the first time Madden hasn't been on last gen consoles, so I mean, believe it or not, it's the first time. So Madden, the new Madden that came out, was it Madden 26 or whatever? Yeah, that's the first one that hasn't been on Xbox One and PS4. So honestly, you know, a 12-year run, that's pretty impressive if you ask me. And you know, it's interesting to see that kind of happening the way that it is. So you know, again, I love to see stuff like this when it's happening, because it means that we're going to be getting more focus on our specific platforms and stuff like that. And you know, it's nice to just see that you know, developers are going to be able to make the games better, because like I said, like, I like PUBG, but for me that game always played so janky that it made it almost impossible to kind of get into and like play for long periods of time. Just like you know, the jank was just too much, you know. But at the end of the day, nice to see this happening, and you know, I'm excited to see even more of these games ending up, you know, kind of being able to kind of play the game, and needing to kind of see, you know, some of these games that are gonna just end support on the old consoles. You know, it's like, think about it, man, getting those games to run on those old CPUs, it couldn't have been easy, you know. And it's like Microsoft, like I wish they would be more into trying to sell their console, because they could be doing a much better job with stuff like this. I mean, yeah, they've kind of cut out last gen a while ago, but you know, they're really not jumping on that bandwagon. They're kind of making it so that PlayStation is like the only thing in people's minds when they buy stuff. Like I think GTA 6 is going to sell a ton of consoles, and you know, unfortunately, I think Microsoft doesn't have the supply and doesn't care about having the supply to be able to do that. So we'll see what happens. At any rate, I appreciate you guys watching. I'll link this in the description. Are you guys excited to see more games drop last gen, even if it's like 5 years later? Let me know. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.